And I love hard racing, it's the season of win stickers. And I saw Reddick, he forgot that I existed. And it's all his fault that we both finished in the 30s. I'll drink castor all in honor of a win for Keselowski. And I'll dream each night of some checkered flags. The last 2 weeks I had some beats that were bad. Now we're on pit road and I'm really mad. And I'll lecture Tyler like I'm his dad.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Happy Hour podcast. And we finally brought back a song from Michael Massie. He finally gave a crap about this episode and made a song. So good to have everyone in. Hello, everyone. My name is Trey Lyle. Joining me as they do every week is Michael Massie as well as Caleb Barnes. But our guest this week is the digital content director. I think I got that right. For Jaski, it is Mr. Dustin Albino. Dustin, how are you doing your second time around this shindig and rocking some Syracuse stuff? So does that make you an elite journalist? Is that like an elitist journalist because you're rocking the Syracuse stuff?
I think so. I think that's how it goes. Yeah, I'm happy to be back though. No, boo.
Do we need to go back to that ass kicking on Thursday night that you watched in Lane Stadium?
That was the first time I saw Syracuse on the road, and that was not a good first experience.
Yeah. I loved it.
I'm sure you did.
I did too. But good to have you on in for this episode. In this episode, we got a bunch of fun stuff to talk about. As always, sit back, relax, crack open that cold one, unless you're Caleb, of course, because he is not of age yet. It's coming up though, right? I'm pretty sure it's coming up.
Yeah. We'll go with that.
Okay, sure. I don't know when his birthday is, folks. Or if you're driving, because here at Front Stretch, we ask for responsibility. Reminder, if you want, this show is very interactive as we are live on YouTube, youtube.com/Front Stretch. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/Front Stretch as well. So leave your opinions in the comment section down below. We've been able to display those in the last couple of weeks. So if you have questions, comments about what we're talking about, drop them in, and we would love to discuss them with you as well. Let's get right on into this. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about today, with the upfronts going on all this week, a lot of, amongst all the major media companies, Amazon, Disney, you had Turners, you had everything, like all these media dumps happened this week. So all the official announcements happened. You had Dale Earnhardt Jr. officially announced with TNT and Amazon. I believe that happened exactly last week, but that was last week. And then you had the Coke 600 is announced as the first race for Amazon next year. But interesting announcement that's going to start this week, or I believe next weekend, is about one Jimmie Johnson. Dustin, you wanted to touch on that as your topic for this week?
Yeah, I just think it's a pretty cool aspect. You got, obviously Kyle Larson doing the double, driving the 1,100 miles. And now you got Jimmie Johnson doing the double, where he's going to be in Charlotte preparing the car all weekend long, and then hopping on a jet to get to Indianapolis to call the Indy 500 pre-race, and then getting back to Charlotte. So it's interesting, right? Because obviously NBC lost Dale Jr. this year. So I feel like in a way, this is kind of not a replacement, but it's an opportunity for Jimmie to kind of shine. He has some experience. I believe he's done the Indy 500 in the past too. So yeah, I think it'll be something new to watch too.
Yeah, I believe he did it his first year at IndyCar when he didn't do the 500. He just did the road courses. He didn't do the ovals. Yeah, so this is very interesting. I think that, and I'm trying not to offend Jeff Burton here, but they did need that kind of signature figure back in the booth that NBC had. Like Kevin Harvick is that for Fox, it's clear. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. was that for, NBC. Like everyone knows who Dale Earnhardt Jr. is. Everyone knows who Kevin Harvick is. Everyone knows who Jimmie Johnson is. And I think to get that, I think it's going to be unique. He's going to give really good perspective on Larson in terms of the travel, because they probably will travel together in terms of getting from Charlotte to Indy on that day and everything that goes through it. I think that's really cool. It did say Phoenix he was doing it, but wasn't one of his races scheduled this year to be that race at
Yeah.
Phoenix?
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
So maybe Corey Haim is now replacing him in the 84 just to get some. We're going to talk silly season later, but that's some reckless speculation right there. Maybe for that final race, but that's interesting. But I think he's going to do a good job. He's one of the smartest race car drivers we've ever seen. I think him and Chad is that team proven with their 7 championships. He's deservingly in the discussion in the greatest of all time. And, to tie it to the upfronts, it was announced, the greatest football player of the first football game for Fox. And now NBC is maybe getting the greatest race car driver of all time, stock car racer of all time to join their booth. And I'll be interested to see all these booths are going to have a shuffle next year. We've already kind of seen the little tidbits of it, whether it's Lee Diffie coming into NBC at the end of the year, whether it's obviously Dale Jr.'s moving on. It appears Dale Jarrett has moved on from NBC. So we will not know what these booths will look like come 2024. And maybe this is a tester to see if Jimmie will do a full-time role. Now, will it work out? I am 50-50 on it. Like, if Jimmie is loose and is the kind of person that we were told about and maybe not as seen as much, I think he could do a great job. And I hope we see that, because I think he'll provide great insight. It's just, will he be loose? And, what if an LMC car gets, what if Eric Jones wrecks someone? I don't think Eric Jones will wreck someone. I'm just saying, like Dale Jr., I think one quality, even though he admitted he was uncomfortable doing the Xfinity broadcast, if his drivers end up, he's not afraid to call out his own drivers. And that's something that we didn't see when you had these ownership personalities in the booth. Like Jeff Gordon was not really at liberty to call out Hendrick Motorsports drivers. And, so that's something that I don't think is a big picture play, but definitely something that I'm going to watch out for. But overall, I think Jimmie, this is a really good move by NBC to replace Dale Jr., because you're not going to replace Dale Jr., but they probably got someone as best as possible to do it.
You can't really call it a Dale Jr. replacement, because that's just not fair to Jimmie.
Yeah.
Because, how do I say this in a polite way? Jimmie's not the greatest personality, right? Not the greatest TV personality. I've heard that away from the track, he's a really fun, crazy guy, or at least he used to be when he was younger. But he always is super buttoned up when he is on TV. And maybe, Lee Diffie is so energetic and enthusiastic. Maybe he'll bring more out of him. That's my hope. But I can also see, this past week, we had Terry Labonte in the booth. And it's like you forgot he was up there, because he just wasn't classic Terry. And, true to his form, he was never a super talkative guy. They had to keep saying,
that's nice.
Yeah,
that's kind of what he said.
Yeah, what do you think, Terry? Yeah, but I could see the same deal where Lee Diffie, Jeff Burton, Steve Letarte just dominate Jimmie in the booth, and every once in a while he has something to say. But I hope I'm wrong. I'm also a little concerned about the Indy 500. I think it's a win for us, right? To get 7-time champion in the booth, get his analysis. And he's got IndyCar experience, so he can add. He's driven the Indy 500. He can give us great feedback for that as well. My concern is he's on the same plane as Larson, I believe I read. So if something say Larson wins or something takes a really long time, both of them could miss the race. I just think that Jimmie, he hasn't figured out this next gen car yet, and I don't know about having an extra thing on your plate while you already are playing catch up. So that's it's a win for us, but it's for him. Does he need to be doing it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Oh, what were you gonna say, Trey?
I was just going to mention how Massie doesn't know what a calendar looks like when it comes to this weekend, because he's only going to be there Sunday. So there's no on-track activity he has to be at for the Indianapolis 500 until Sunday. So he will maximize his time in Charlotte for a 1 hour practice and qualifying session. That basically is what he'll get. So, I mean, even if Larson wins, Jimmie will still get there, I bet. And if not, they'll have Corey Heim for the start of the race, which, given what Jimmie has done, might be an upgrade.
Well, that's maybe. Well, I guess it is kind of true, but still a little harsh to a 7-time NASCAR champion. But I think it'll be fun to see him. He brings a little bit, not as much as Kevin Harvick did, but he's going to bring a little bit of that knowledge of how the next gen drives to his broadcast experience. Again,
how not to drive it.
Yeah, how not to, but how not to. I guess he's crashed it just about every way you could. But
but two of his races are going to be super speedways, and he's done the Daytona 500 twice. So I don't know. We'll just see how it goes. I think he's going to bring he brings credibility right off the bat because he is Jimmie Johnson.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's pretty, like his interviews that he's done with Fox this year, he's been pretty well spoken. And I feel like we've seen a little bit more personality. He's not quite the Dale Jr. of where he's going to yell out, "Oh, we got to crash," or "Slide." He's not going to yell at any of that. But I think he does have a level of professionalism about him that's going to help elevate the broadcast, as long as he is getting his chance to speak, like you were saying, Massie.
Anything else on this?
So
No?
I think we covered it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Look at that. Knocking one segment down. Leave your thoughts about what do you think how Jimmie Johnson's going to do? Good, bad? You hate him, so you think he's going to suck? Just let us know in the comment section down below. All right. Moving on to our next topic. This might be our most interesting topic. Last week, I think after the show, Michael McDowell was announced he was going to Spire Motorsports, which was a shock a little bit to, I think, all of us here. And it has led to a lot of rumors for silly season. It is cooking up a storm. My fire alarm might go off because it's so hot in the kitchen with silly season. Caleb, you can attack this. I know you wanted to talk about this. You can attack it rumor by rumor. You can attack it by listing all the rumors. There's a lot out there. Let's just say that.
It's time for Trey's weekly, as he calls it, reckless speculation part of the show.
That's what this show is all about, man.
Exactly.
It's having a few adult beverages and spewing reckless speculation. That is basically the basis of this show. And
yeah.
I mean, Caleb can't have adult beverages. It's him having Yoo-hoo. But other than that, it's
Hey, I will say it's not us like throwing crazy things out there. It's like stuff that
there's smoke.
Credibility. Yeah, there's smoke. It's not like
that's why I said my fire alarm was. That's why I said my fire alarm was going off because there's smoke in the room. You get it? Come on.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll try to list them all just off the top of my head because there's just a ton of stuff going on, and we've already heard some of the smoke last week, but. This Michael McDowell move officially kicks it off because now Spire is going to have Michael McDowell. So it's like, where does Zane Smith go? Does he go to Trackhouse? What's Trackhouse going to do? Are they going to? There's talk of them merging with Colleague. I think DBC mentioned. Then on the back to the Ford side of things, you're like, well, what's going to happen with them? Because we talked last week a little bit about Stuart Haas, and there's even more smoke and maybe a little bit of fire on their team. And what's going to happen with them? Where might their charters go? Where are their drivers going to go? Because Noah Gragg, a lot of people like him. Chase Briscoe seems like Ford wants to hang on to him and maybe keep him. Seems like Harrison Burton might be out of a ride this year. See Josh Berry. I mean, it's just his first year, but he just finished top 3 at Darlington, and he's been showing some flashes this year. Trying to think. I don't know if that's all of them, but there's so much movement, and it still feels so early in the season. But what are some of the biggest things that you guys have your eye on, I guess, at this point in the silly season cycle of rumors?
Well, I mean, you hit on a lot there, obviously, and like you said, there has been a lot of smoke. The whole Ford thing is kind of intriguing because what does happen to Stuart Haas? Do they sell 2 of the charters, which it's been reported that they could. Could they sell more than that?
We've lost
It's
I hate to report that we have lost Dustin Albino.
I got him.
no.
No, I got him.
We're here. Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Check 1, 2, Massie. But yeah, I just think I don't know. There's a lot of smoke out there. You wonder what's going to happen, and like you said, Caleb, like it's so early in the season. We're halfway through the regular season, and all this is starting to shuffle. Makes sense a little bit though, because this is about the time when sponsors and teams need to start planning ahead for next year. So I definitely think Ford wants to keep Briscoe. He's been in their pipeline for 9 years now. They've kind of put him through Stewart-Haas in the Xfinity series. Well, with BKR first in the Truck Series, and Stewart-Haas in the Xfinity, and then in the Cup Series they backed him. So definitely think they want to keep him. What happens with the 34? Yeah, there's just so much going on, and it's going to be fun to watch. And I'm glad I work for the Silly Season site.
I'm telling you what, this is how I feel about this. Who is Pepe Sylvia? That's how I feel about this. Shout out to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia if you've ever seen it. But I definitely feel like it starts like you have this tree, and it starts with like two teams, Trackhouse and SHR, but for different reasons. Trackhouse has these two drivers signed. We know they are signed for multiple years in SVG and Zane Smith. They have nowhere to go. Then you have SHR that is like has 4 charters, but it appears that both Gene and Tony are like, we out, peace. Especially Gene, which if we look at that team, if Gene says peace, I'm out, that team's done just because of the money. And so those two things need to be solved, whether it's Colleague, which I think actually provides Trackhouse kind of the outlet they want, because they want to be one of those elite super teams, and those elite super teams have a pipeline built. That's why they signed Zane Smith. So if you get Colleague and you get their winning championship caliber Xfinity structure, and then their 2 charters, and they already have a built-in relationship with SVG, basically doing Cup starts and the Xfinity series with them, it seems like the seeds have already been planted. I think that's a natural kind of fit, if that makes sense. Matt Colleague appears to be, I don't want to say having money issues, but it appears that Colleague has been looking for more funding these past couple of years. They maybe have gotten to the point where they grew too fast than they should have by buying 2 charters, by going full-time Cup Series racing, and bit off more they can chew, and they need more infrastructure. And I think you pair Matt Colleague with Justin Marks, you bring Chris Rice in, who I think is really good at his job, and I think that builds a really good team. And you look at Ross Chastain already has a relationship with Colleague Racing. I think Suarez has raced for them, if I'm not mistaken.
He did this year at Daytona.
Exactly. So
Justin Marks has raced for them.
Yeah, Chicago free course.
I forgot about that. So it just seems natural to make that pairing. All right, that settles that. Let's go to the Fords. You're right, Dustin. I think that's the most intriguing thing, is what happens with Stewart-Haas. I think it's the biggest domino in this silly season, and I think it's going to create the most reckless silly season. You have so many teams connected to Stewart-Haas, but let's assume the 30 front row and Stewart-Haas do a merger as well in some form, whether it's front row, which has done this before, buys the infrastructure at Stewart-Haas and buys 1 to 2 charters, maybe 1 charter. So I think it's natural for, the 34 to become Cole Custer with the connections there. That is the rumor there. So it all connects. And then you look at Ford, like, well, the best Ford car, quote unquote, available would probably be the 21. And if Ford is invested in Briscoe as much as they have, with him being kind of their only real successful developmental driver of the last, 10 years?
Yeah.
Like, it's him and Blaney, it feels like. And you would put him in the 21. That makes a lot of sense, which is another rumor. So they all make sense. I just think at the end of the day, we're going to be 5-6 months from now, towards the end of the year, and there's going to be like 700 moves. Well, not 700 moves, but like 6 to 7 moves that are all going to be connected because obviously of the moves that happened last year of Zane Smith and SCG going to Trackhouse, Front Row reinvesting in Todd Gilliland, Stuart Haas making this last effort to, but never be, it seems like not being fully committed these last 3 years, basically since they've gone to the next gen car. And this Ford relationship that's ending is all leading to this kind of crazy kind of moments where I think the unexpected moves are going to continue to happen because it just, there's too much at play. Because, like, would you be shocked if, like, 2311 is bringing Corey Heim to what, Nashville? And 2311 is connected to Stuart or to one of those SHR charters. I would not be shocked if there's if Corey Heim is racing for 2311 next year at this point. I'm not shocked if anything happens at this point. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and another domino we haven't even mentioned is the fact that, and this probably won't get answered till like August because it gets later every year, it seems, is that Martin Truex Jr., we don't know if he's going to come back or retire. And, you know, that is a top 8, top 5 ride. Normally, silly season starts with like the top rides, and then it kind of funnels on down to fill the seats. That Truex thing, like somebody could be holding out hope for that and then be very disappointed when he announces he's coming back. They're stuck without a chair, musical chairs. But yes, yeah. And then I mentioned the top to the bottom thing, but the Michael McDowell thing really just kind of spun everything out of order because that's, you know, a lower ride, even though they're growing and getting better and better. Like that's not a tier 1 team. And they just went out and got their driver. So now it's the way it's all filling in is kind of disoriented from the way it usually is. But yeah, I think a lot depends, like you said, on the SHR. It sounds like 2 charters are gone for sure. Like they're at least shedding some charters. Whether they're back next year or not, I don't know. I mean, I could see if Front Row gets 2 charters from them. Then, yeah, Custer sounds like one rumor. And I could see them taking on Josh Berry as well. Like, maybe, you know, if he's under contract with SHR, maybe that's part of the deal. Like, he has to come on
Rodney
board.
stays on.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's a huge free agent right there. If SHR shuts down, is Rodney Childers. Like,
because I think it's rumored that McDowell's crew chief is coming over with him. So then,
oh yeah, that is. We'll see if that happens or not. But yeah, the Trackhouse colleague thing. Yeah, colleague is just not. You know, they came in with all this steam, and yeah, they've won 2 races already with AJ, and then when they didn't put AJ back in the car full time, it really felt like something was up, and they just haven't been. Even in Xfinity, they haven't looked as good as they looked the past couple of years. So like they definitely need some kind of spark. And if that's forming a partnership with the Trackhouse guys, then, you know, so be it. Like you just think like SVG looked great in the car in the races he ran last year for Trackhouse. This year, like Coda, he wasn't even a factor in the colleague car in the Cup race. So yeah, it's just weird to see how far they've kind of fallen in the past year or so. But something needs to be done. And as you mentioned, Trackhouse has drivers and not enough seats. Although the Zane thing, I don't know, this is a Reddit rumor, so take it with a grain of salt. The Zane might only be there because remember he signed a deal with Ganassi?
and they had to like give him a year.
Yeah.
No, Zane Smith is great, man. I love Zane Smith. Zane Smith was the pick of the decade by Trey Lyle. We'll get to the front stretch draft later.
But yeah, so if Trackhouse, I'm not saying that's completely true or anything, but if that was the situation, Trackhouse had to honor like an old Ganassi agreement with Zane, then he might not be the guy in the 4th car for them. Like, especially as bad as he's ran, like What have you done for me lately, Zane?
What are you talking about? He just earned me a measly 6 points this past weekend at Darlington.
Yeah. Hey, pull that picture up. What if he goes back to Front Row Motorsports, the 34?
That wall is the SHR rumors. SHR is selling. I go to Gene, and he told me I'm selling this charter here, charter here. Then I go to Nancy, I knock on Nancy's door. Nancy,
we got 4 people here. SHR got 4 charters.
Then I realized I was like, this Pepe Sylvia. Then I realized there's no charters. Oh, it's gone. How about that?
That's so interesting too, just because it's like, are they going to, with the charter agreement being up in the air, are they going to sell it for less? Or other teams like, oh, I can swoop in and get that. And then, yeah, just some of the other stuff that we mentioned, like, I feel like Colleague has lost its identity in both the Cup Series and the Xfinity. Like Xfinity, they were great on super speedways and they were great on road courses. And then they put a lot of effort into their Cup program, but the 16 car doesn't have an identity anymore. They're changing drivers in that week after week, it seems like. And then I feel like Daniel Hemrick was a pretty good Xfinity Series driver, but he just struggled in the Cup Series. So I think that partnership makes sense. But then, the whole Michael McDowell front row stuff is super intriguing as well, because it feels like Spire and front row are on the same trajectories. Like Spire's trying to elevate, and I love their business model. They started out just kind of the back of the field, just there to make money. And then they just slowly, I remember they put out their business plan or whatever, like back in 2019, whenever they had that surprise win with Justin Haley, and they've been slowly building up, and we've been able to see that slow progression, and they're trying to get there. But I think they're a few steps behind front row on the ladder, but there's just, again, so many interesting things going on with this silly season.
And it's very possible McDowell saw the writing on the wall, right? Like he might know way more than we know. He probably does. But two, this gives him stability going to Spire. Multi-year contract. He's never had that. It's always been an option, year to year. And usually that option isn't picked up until last year is an exception. I think it was August, but usually it's November, December, the season's already over. So I completely understand why he needed and felt like he had to go. Yeah.
Money talk. I think personally, I don't know if they're going to work out, but I think he got a lot of Benjamins, and what, Michael McDowell, he might have just Kirk Cousins NASCAR. BJ McLeod or Michael McDowell might be the Kirk Cousins of NASCAR.
But
depending on how these next couple months go.
Spire continues to invest across the board, whether it's the Truck Series or the Cup Series. They went out and they got their guy, and they did that with Hostevar. They've done that with LaJoie's been their staple driver, so they've got their core driver lineup now too.
All right, let's truly recklessly speculate. I'm gonna say, all right. First, I'm gonna ask: do you think SHR and front row merge, and how many charters come with that? You can do. It can't be 4, obviously. It can be up to 2.
I think 2.
So you think front row becomes a 4-car team next season?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think there will come a 3. That's my opinion. It's
possible too that we talk about Custer potentially going to the 34. Like Gene sponsored him his whole career.
Yeah.
There's potential that Haas stays in that way. Or
Stewart front row Haas Motorsports.
SHR FRM.
All right.
There's a lot of possibilities.
Who ends up in the 21? Because we didn't even talk about the Noah Gregson rumors, which he's connected to like 6 different teams. I've seen RCR, I've seen Joe Gibbs, I've seen, So who ends up in the 21? It's not Harrison Burton. John Wood's like, get out of here.
I'm going to guess Noah. I have nothing to back that up, but that's my guess.
If we're guessing, I like Massey's guess. Noah brings a little funding with him. He fits that old school vibe with the Wood brothers. I think that's a good fit. What do you do with Briscoe? Does he stay with front row? Does RFK get a 3rd charter? Maybe. He's definitely going to stay in Ford, I would say.
Well, if front row and SHR merge, 2 charters in the air. So we'll get to that in a second. I think Briscoe's number 21.
Imagine a Bass Pro number 21 car.
That'd be so
That'd be
cool.
weird. I think Briscoe's in the 21. It just makes too much sense because Ford basically sponsors the 21, and that Briscoe's been Ford's driver. For better terms or less.
I think Noah can find a better ride. I think he can get something better.
Mahindra.
The 21's a good ride though.
It's supposed to
be crap. Really, like crap. Sorry, Harrison. You're a good dude.
I will say too, like Briscoe is pretty close with Austin Cindric, so that's something else you can keep an eye on.
I think so. Like Gilliland, I think is staying in the 38. He's proven nothing otherwise. So if Custer's, we're all assuming, is in the 34, who would be the third front row guy?
I kind of like Josh Berry.
I think Berry too.
I think to keep Rodney, because I think Rodney really likes Josh and they seem to vibe well, and Josh has done well. I agree, because I think Priest is the odd man out. No matter, like, Priest is the first one to go at Stewart-Haas. I think that's clear. That's clear at this point. It's clear. All right.
And like you can keep the number 4 and like use the font of the 34.
Yes. It is pretty close already.
And Rodney, keep the 4 the way it is.
Like we mentioned though, Rodney's like he'd be one of the biggest free agent acquisitions out there, period. So if front row can bring in him and kind of get him to lead the charge, and they're a young, talented team as it is, I mean that's a dangerous team.
So boom. All right. Do you believe Trackhouse and Colleague were merging? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think ultimately it's Zane Smith and SVG in those 2 spots? At 2 of the 4. The other 2. Because it would be obviously Ross and Suarez.
I feel like this one's a little hard because, Caleb and Massie both brought up like the Xfinity kind of struggles and obviously the Cup struggles for Colleague over the last year or so. I feel like we forget that AJ, up until the last couple of races of the regular season last year, was realistically could have pointed his way in. And then ever since then, he won at the Roval and it's kind of been downhill. But the way Colleagues run their business now, I think Trey summed it up perfectly earlier. It's a business. They're making business decisions. So if they merge, Trackhouse could take care of that. They have no issues finding sponsorship. So I don't know. That one's more interesting, maybe more interesting even than the Fords.
I think AJ wants to be it seems like AJ enjoys the Xfinity Series more than the Cup Series. So I would not be shocked. I think Trackhouse would be smart to basically have AJ as a anchor their Xfinity Series for the rest of his career, and then keep Zane and SVG at Cup. Like you have to, if you're going to buy a charter, your first charter has to go to SVG because he's 38. Right. He's 38 years old.
Yeah, SVG's one of them for sure. I think the other one, maybe they do an all-star car, kind of like Colleague does for 16 now, where you have AJ run some road courses, you have Zane run some races.
I just don't think that works. It's not effective. I don't think you get a good sense of the car throughout the season because you have to adjust. You're basically catching up to the driver each week. Like the only reason AJ's just so good at the Roval, that's why that's the only time we've seen it successful really is AJ, and that's because AJ's just so good at a road course. I would argue I think Zane's too young and too good of a prospect, whereas I ignore the Chip Ganassi theory. I think that's dumb. I think it's going to be Zane. It just makes too much. I think they announced it as a multi-year deal, so I think it's going to be Zane.
You got to give him another year.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't give up on a talent like that.
Especially when it's essentially I think Justin knew, this is like a Clint Boyer kind of thing. That's the only one I can remember when he was like Abe Scott, which for that 1 year before he jumped in the 14. I think they had low expectations. They just knew they needed to get Zane in their staple, or this basically front row. If they had a third this year, or they would have a natural person replace McDowell right now if Zane stayed in front row. So I just think
they get Casey Atwood him. They get Casey Atwood him.
You know how many times this man has mentioned Casey Atwood to me in the last 3 weeks? So, all right, where does Noah end up? That's, I think, the spiciest one.
All right, reckless speculation. Bass Pro Shops on the 19 car. What if Martin doesn't decide to come back?
He is not ending up at Joe Gibbs. I'm telling you right now, him and Ty are not going to ever be teammates. I can
That would be
guarantee
so
you
funny,
that.
though.
It would be, but Joe ain't doing that. So let's skip that. Like, it's not happening, people.
We've seen crazier things happen, though, too.
Yeah.
You know?
Kyle Busch is driving for RCR.
Yeah, but that's not like Kyle ever wanted to beat the crap out of his grandson.
They did. Richard Childress did beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, that's different.
Oh yeah, it's different.
Massie's fired up.
Fair.
It's exactly the difference is Noah and Ty have never punched each other.
Yeah, no one's
So that's
now.
not even as bad.
I think better teammates would be Sam Mayer and Ty Gibbs. But yeah,
I don't know.
I think the 33, because the 3 is done again. Nah, I don't know. I think it makes sense to go to the 19. It does. But I think Toyota doesn't like the problem is that you got to think about it. I think Toyota played a big part in the Noah Gragson LMC end. Does Toyota really want to be like, all right, let's do it again?
Third time's
like
charm.
it would be the third time like they tried Noah, essentially.
I guess the other best pro option would be like if Austin Dillon, if he
Once
decides
Steph becomes an owner, take the Mike Dillon role.
My thing about that is how could you do that to Austin Hill?
Yeah.
Like Austin Hill deserves a couple rides.
He's remained loyal. Last year he could have went to colleague full time. He had the funding. It was almost a done deal, and he remained loyal to the Xfinity Series.
I think ultimately where one of those SHR charters end up is where Noah goes. Whether it's RFK 2311, well, not 2311, but RFK, I think. That seems like that would work. You get Noah in there. Ford keeps him.
He's running well every week now. I mean,
if he didn't have the points penalty, he would have a shot to point his way into the playoffs.
Yeah, he's 83 out, so take 35 away. That's what, 58? 58. Well, yeah, it would be 48.
Yeah.
I'm usually good at math too, and I just.
What if he ends up like, all right, this is real rec spec. I don't know what Bowman's deal's like. Like, I don't know if like Hendrick can just cut him whenever. But if Bowman keeps the struggles and allies finally like, all right, let's do this, and Noah finally ends up in the 48, would be
Bowman's not really struggling though.
Yeah.
Like, I know he hasn't won, but he's top 10 in the field to death. He's top 10 in points. I mean, he's going to be in the playoffs.
True. That's the thing. Like, ultimately, I think Priest is gone. Like, I think ultimately next season, just because of rides, 2 SHR drivers will not be in the Cup Series. I just don't know which 2.
I could see Riley Hurst getting one of those, like a front row ride.
He could also go to like the 15 or so too.
Yeah.
He's running 4 races there this year. He's run 2 already. He's got his next one come up in Nashville.
Sure. Like I said, there's too. I could bring the Pepe Sylvia meme out. There's too much to figure. But all right, so let's get to this. So where does Noah end up? Like, what do you think? Everyone. So Caleb thinks the 19. I don't think.
Massie and I said the 21.
Yeah, said 21.
I will say.
But there is some smoke to Briscoe going there. So I don't know.
I will say he becomes the 3rd RFK driver.
Totally
buy a charter from. Yep. That's what I'll say right now. All right, more rumors. We should play Adele. Rumor has it, because we're just talking about rumors. Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic dropped a schedule rumor, what he's hearing, and it broke half of this panel's hearts reading it. Massie, go ahead. I'm gonna start.
Yeah, the obvious first rumor is that Richmond Raceway is losing a date, and that the date is going to Mexico. That is one that broke my heart. I can understand the reasoning behind it, but yeah, that still stings as someone that grew up going there. I'm just going to say the track hasn't changed in 20 years. 20 years ago, it was considered the best track on the circuit. The track didn't change. You let us down, NASCAR. Okay, I'll keep that preaching at a minimum. My only thing is that I saw it coming. They would take a date from there, but I don't know about going to Mexico City. Like, I just think that we'll see more passing in the parking lot than we will on the racetrack. Because, okay, short tracks are struggling right now, but road courses are also struggling. So, why couldn't we go somewhere else, like a Chicago? If you told me we were taking the Richmond date to Chicagoland, or somewhere where the racing would be great, I'd be like, okay, let's do that. But I just don't know about the whole Mexico City thing. The other things was Easter Sunday racing is gone. Hallelujah. I like that being off this, having an off week there. It didn't work. The experiment didn't work. Didn't have a good crowd past couple times. I'm trying to think what else was there. Oh, Phoenix championship race again. That's I think Bianchi put it best. The socks for Christmas. They opened socks for Christmas.
He also did mention. You want to mention the Homestead thing?
What was the Homestead? Oh,
Homestead is
bidding
preparing a bid.
Yeah,
26 in 25.
Which that's
or
cool.
what year is this? 26.
This is 24 now. So next year's Phoenix.
2026.
2026. Yeah.
One turns 27 tomorrow and still doesn't know what year it is.
But yeah, so that it would be cool if we got to a situation where cities were bidding on the championship race, kind of like the Super Bowl and every other major sport.
WrestleMania.
WrestleMania. So that's we have to suffer through one more Phoenix championship before we get to some cool stuff. It sounds like. Am I missing anything on the schedule changes? I'm trying to think what else there was.
Easter weekend.
I said
will
Easter.
Be off.
Yeah. Bowman Gray. I could have the clash at Bowman Gray, which I think is a good idea because it was just look. I wish they could have gone somewhere else with it, the same Coliseum concept. But I like that they're saving the team some money for, it's the exact same track. It's the Coliseum track, right? So it'd be good to save everybody money and have the same product. But I like Bowman Gray. It gets a lot of hate, but I think it's a cool little historic track. But yeah, what do you guys think about all these many changes coming into the schedule?
I'm not super surprised by any of them except for the Bowman Gray, maybe. And with the Richmond stuff, again, like you said, Massie, I understand the reasoning behind it. And I also understand the reasoning behind wanting to get into an international market. But just with the way this car is performed, it's come on, I would be less upset with it, I guess, if we were going to 1.5 miles. But it's kind of, NASCAR's been behind a little bit on some of these things. We had all these 1.5 miles really until 2019, 2020. And we were seeing some great action on the road courses and short tracks. And then we got to the next gen and they added Wilkesboro. There's all this talk about adding the fairgrounds. We tore down Auto Club and we're talking about turning it into a short track and adding all these road courses. And then it's the next gen doesn't work as well right there. So I don't know. That's not my favorite thing either, but Homestead would be great to see that back as the championship race, and to see the championship race move around every year would also be pretty incredible. And then the Clash, I don't know about that. I know it's on, it's the TV contracts and that they have that slotted in there as well. But I feel like there's got to be a better way to help it hype up the Daytona 500 without making it this. It is a separate event, but I think you could remake it something down in Daytona, whether you go up the road to New Smyrna, or then they used to have K&N races on the backstretch of Daytona, something like that. If you want to do a short track, or heck, even just maybe mess with the front stretch a little bit and have them run one down the start finish line, turn around and zip down pit road or something if you want a short track effect. But I feel like the Clash should be something local and close to Daytona, as opposed to this separate event that we're traveling. Bowman Gray isn't that far away. I know it's not LA, but I feel like there's a better thing to do with the Clash still.
Yeah, it's only, speaking of the Clash, Bowman Gray, it's less than 2 hours from Charlotte, I believe. So I mean, you can't get much closer than that. As if you wanted a short track like that. I hear what you're saying though. Wanting it to hype up the Daytona 500, having it close to Daytona, and there are short tracks in Florida that you could have it at. But I'm curious to see how this Bowman Gray situation plays out, because maybe one day does it get a points race? Like, because there's so much talk about the Clash getting a points race potentially, but Bowman Gray, it's right in your backyard. Who knows? Phoenix, I know Phoenix gets a lot of hate. They've invested so much money into that place. It's a beautiful facility. And the racing, sure, it's not the best, right? Like Homestead puts on decent racing, but it gets very spread out. Phoenix, I don't know, like Bell won by 5 seconds in March, but it's not bad, I don't think. And all the other, everything was, kind of as expected as far as what Jordan and the Athletic put out there. But I don't know, I'm curious to see, because it sounds like the schedule is gonna get released here in the next few weeks or so. From what
we'll see.
What's that?
I said we'll see. Didn't they say a few weeks and then it took mid-July, almost September?
Yeah, there's a lot of different parameters you have to check off before you can release the schedule, obviously, especially if you're going international, like has been reported. So, and then that was the holdup last year. So yeah, we'll see when it comes out.
My hope is that if they do go to Mexico, they do it the week before or after Easter, just to give people an off week, give people a break in. And then, the other thing was North Wilkesboro is returning as All-Star race. That was another thing.
I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
Yeah, which I'd like to see him do a points race there, and try something else out as the All-Star,
I'd like to see the Xfinity cars at North Wilkesboro.
Yes.
I think personally.
I know what I was going to say.
Okay, I just won't talk.
You can go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sire.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
If Richmond is truly losing a cup date, please, can we have next year an Xfinity IndyCar doubleheader at Richmond? Please.
Ooh, that's cooking.
You promised us an IndyCar race in 2020. COVID canceled it. It never happened. Make it happen, people. Stop all this bickering between the two racing series. Get along. Let's grow motorsports together, like we'll do at the end of this month when Kyle Larson runs both races.
Raj, get it done. All right, yes. As someone who like one of the coolest things I ever did with my dad was to go to we wouldn't go to the race, we'd go to the practices and just seeing the hot laps. That was something really cool I got to do with my dad. Nice. And I would want to cover that race. I love Richmond. Richmond, it's the place I fell in love with the sport, and Massie feels the same way. And so it's very hard for me to sit here and be I can't say there's no justifying Richmond getting 2 dates. The attendance hasn't been there. The racing hasn't been there. Well, I think it's the car, and I think you can make the same case about Phoenix, but fans show up to Phoenix, and they've made it an event. I think Phoenix as a championship site is perfect. It's warm weather. They've hosted every major possible event. They've hosted a Super Bowl. They've hosted, the Wells Fargo Championship every year is awesome. They've hosted Final Fours. They hosted this year's Final Four. They hosted this year's Final Four. Obviously, they've had the World Series when they just had the World Series with the Diamondbacks. I think Arizona is Phoenix is a really good area, outside of what they did with their hockey team. But I think it's more the car than the track. And I will say that till for now on. And I think if you had a better, if you watch the Xfinity series, both at Richmond and at Phoenix, it's pretty good racing. And I think we can see good racing there. So yeah, but I'm glad to go back to Homestead. I know where Dustin wants it because we had a debate in the infield about it, which led him to having this appearance. Someone who thinks there'll be 30-mile-per-hour winds, which we brought up last week. That was the reason we talked about Kansas having maybe the championship race, because it was Dustin's idea. I do want to give him credit for that.
Yeah, I don't know if it was my idea, but that too, like it's a, it might not be the sports city that Phoenix is.
Kansas City is a great city, though.
It is a very underrated city, I feel.
Yeah. I just think the 30-mile-per-hour winds could cause some issues. 100%.
Yeah, especially if the schedule doesn't get moved up and it's actually getting extended. It's this year it got moved back a week because of the Olympics. So, but Kansas is the perfect track, I feel like, personally, to host the championship race.
I'm with you. Let's do it. Hey, and if they move, because isn't that the rumor that the Chiefs are moving like near to where the race is at?
Close to the track. Yeah,
possibly.
So
I think
have
if something gets
situation-
passed, there's an election parameter where they could get this tax that would basically keep them where they're at. It's political.
Because wouldn't it be cool if like Chiefs game 1:00, the guy, people get out of that game and could just walk over to the race at 4:00, the championship race? Oh, could happen.
I guess it's all possible. All right, that does it with the rumor section. Well, let me make sure. Anyone else got anything? We're good. All right, cool. That does it with the rumor section of this. So the All-Star race is this weekend, and it is still keeping the $1 million purse. I think I saw a tweet this week where like the $1 million was first won by Jimmie in 2003, or if it was won by Jimmie in 2003, the adjustment for inflation would be $550,000 or $550,000. So they've kept it $1 million this whole time for the All-Star race. What they're also doing now during this same time frame, basically during Amazon's period, so it would start with the Coke 600, which is the week after the All-Star race, is this in-season tournament, which was Denny Hamlin's idea. It's head-to-head competition each week, 32 drivers, and leads to the championship. And the prize is $1 million. My first reaction, other than I think this is a really good concept, and I think it's going to help NASCAR, especially in the summer stretch, especially with Amazon. And I think Amazon can get really creative with how they do it because they're going to be able to, I think, give us a broadcast where, like, if you look at the Next Gen Stats broadcast in the NFL, like, it highlights players. So maybe it highlights a matchup. Like, if your favorite driver is William Byron, he's racing Ryan Blaney, and for the soul of Aaron Blaney, and
chill.
I'm just kidding. It could update. You could have a highlight of a matchup throughout the race, like the way you want to broadcast it. For the honor, I shouldn't say the soul. I should say for the honor of Aaron Blaney, but that's a joke. But it's giving out $1 million prize. To me, it essentially makes the All-Star prize even more pointless because one, they haven't adjusted it over time for inflation, and two, if you're doing $1 million prize for this in-season tournament, then why are you doing $1 million prize for the All-Star race? Like, it's the same payout. Like, the All-Star race, the idea behind it having that big of a payout was to be unique. And I think you need to up the ante. Like, this is crazy to say, but I think NASCAR can do it considering how much money they're getting. I really think you need to make it, I think $9 million is the Daytona 500 payout or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be a $10 million All-Star race. Something insane. Like, that should be the prize. Because like $1 million is not a big purse right now in the Cup Series compared to what it used to be when they started this concept.
I will say that no matter what, like NASCAR's All-Star race is the best All-Star event, I believe, of any.
Yeah, I agree with that. Given what's happened to the rest now.
So
It's either
like money or not,
or
increase or not, like who's to say? Like they haven't confirmed or said anything about the All-Star purse yet for next year. It's kind of all speculation. So yeah, I don't know. The in-season tournament's great. Like it's going to bring so many new eyes, and obviously with the move to Amazon as it is, that's going to bring more eyes. So that's going to be a fun battle to watch. And being fantasy writer for NASCAR.com too, like that's going to highlight a lot of drivers that maybe don't get highlighted on a regular basis too, I think.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy that during the sprint days when like the money was I get the hiccups right now. When the when the money was at an all-time high, they didn't go above that initial $1 million that it had in 2003.
look at your face in a mirror so you can scare yourself.
Or grab some peanut butter.
I'll take a sip of water. You got. I'll come back to my point.
Think about Brian Nolan. That will scare you.
Yeah, the mission accomplished. But yeah, it's just crazy. It didn't inflate in those years where the sport was really booming and the money was at an all-time high. Yeah, now it would be that 1 million would be 1.7 million if it kept up with inflation. And like the Daytona 500, I don't know how the purses work anymore with the charters and all that, but like when they were still tracking the purses, the winner of the Daytona 500 was getting more than the All-Star race.
Well, in this year's purse for the 500, sorry to interrupt, it was the biggest purse in history of any race.
Yeah.
So, the money is obviously there.
So 10 million might be a bigger, an exaggeration.
Maybe 3. How about 3?
5.
But yeah, and I think
it needs to go up. It's basically was my point, because especially if you're going to do $1 million for this in-season tournament, like to me that yes, the All-Star race is a great product, but the reason why it's similar, it's basically stayed the same. But the reason the All-Star stuff around the other sports, it's because it's got diluted. Whether it's because NBA players don't play defense, or in the NFL, they turned it to flag football and they don't care anymore and they don't want to get hurt.
And the Super Bowl teams don't even show up.
Yeah, and the Super Bowl teams don't show up. So, whereas like their only competition is Major League Baseball, because they actually care about the game, because you only pitch like 1 inning and the pitchers can go hard and you have real at bats and it's a real baseball game. And it used to be for who would have home field in the World Series. I don't think they do that anymore. But which that was sick. But it's between that and the All-Star game, which baseball, like that's the good thing about baseball. Well, I love baseball, but it's the All-Star race and the All-Star game are the best 2 products. And I think by doing this mid-season tournament, you're diluting your All-Star race, because theoretically a guy it's the same prize. So you need to distinguish the All-Star race at this point if you're going to make this in-season tournament. And I think by increasing the purse is the only way you can do it. Where it's already a test. It's always been a test for NASCAR, in terms of the tire compounds this weekend. But I think if you made it $5 million or $3 million, all right, then it's back to being distinguished again.
What if there's a different prize? What if it's not money?
What would it be though? That's what I'm trying to think about, because I agree.
Points.
I don't think it can be points.
Points.
I don't think it should be, because it's never. It goes back to diluting it. It just basically makes it a regular race. I think
not whoever wins it.
I understand that, but I think you make it a $3 million. Trust me, with how much money NASCAR is getting from their TV partners, I think they can get $3 million.
Hey, you know where Fox could pull the money from? That race hub budget.
I mean, come on.
You get an extra charter if you win the All-Star race. I agree. I think they should be different levels. But I was thinking earlier, I don't know which one should be higher, because I mean it's 5 races for the in-season tournament, so that's about an extra 200,000 per race. But these guys are also still kind of racing for points, and it's a typical. So you want I feel like they're up. That almost needs to be higher too, to make it more incentive, so that when you're down to the final 4 guys, they're not just I mean, they are going to want to win for bragging rights, and these guys have their egos and everything. But at the same time, I feel like that purse could be higher. But then I also hear what you're saying, Trey, of this is one night and it should be one race, and you hear $1 million nowadays, and it's not quite what it used to be when back in the 90s when they debuted it. That's $1 million. That's a lot of money. It just doesn't have that same feel. But the event itself really hasn't lost its luster. It's just that end of the prize. Now it's oh yeah, by the way, this guy gets a big giant check with $1 million on it.
Yeah, it's just funny. Kyle Larson wins. It's you're a millionaire, and it's he's already been a millionaire for years. You know what I mean? It's just I think. Go ahead.
That's also why I want to see it move around. I want to see North Wilkesboro become a points race, and that All-Star become a spot to try out new places, like we tried out North Wilkesboro, because that could add just an added element have it at like a tiny little short track that, it's like more grassroots connected and, because that's the way grassroots racing is, right? Like you have the big prize money races and that's the one everybody shows up for. So I'd love to see him try All-Star at like South Boston or like some other tiny track like Bowman Gray even, do something like that.
Or two. All right, we're moving on. We're hitting the hour mark. We're going a little over today. Time to update the draft. I haven't done this in a couple of weeks. Technically, Dustin, you were in the lead because Tom made your picks. At 1,736.
I got a race win this week.
I have decided to catch up despite someone we talked about earlier holding me down. Trey Lyle currently has the most wins on the season with 5, actually tied with Massie with 5. But I'm in second, closing in on Mr. Massie here. Actually, I was second last week. I now dropped to third. 1631 to your 1688, and then Brian holding the rear at 1590. But Tom Ball is holding steady in first this week. That's an update on our fantasy draft for this season. We'll keep that updated throughout. Time for our bonus segment. It used to be our old YouTube segment, youtube.com/frontstretch. So hit that subscribe button if you're listening to this part. It was announced today by Dale Earnhardt Jr. that Amazon is doing a 4-part documentary on Dale Earnhardt. I think we've seen a couple of these. I don't think we've seen one to this level when it comes to Dale. And obviously, with Dale Jr. being a part of it, he is going to. I have high expectations for it, and also as someone who is a very big Jason Kelce fan and has watched the Jason Kelce doc, and loved it. I have high expectations for this. So my question is, if you could pick a driver, and I know where Michael Massey's going to pick because he's been saying his name for 600 days. If you could pick a driver to have this, you can call it a 30 for 30, you can call it whatever kind of doc, who would you want it to be? I think one has been done by Tim Richmond. I had a 30 for 30, right? Okay, so that's I guess a name we wouldn't use because that was actually one of the names that popped in my head at first, but then I remembered he had one. He had one.
You can't say Dale either because he's getting one.
Obviously.
That's tough. I would almost go with. I would probably want some old school, from like the 70s or 80s. Someone that I, would like to learn more about. Maybe someone like David Pearson. I feel like there's a lot of story to tell there. Obviously, he didn't show up to the track. He only ran a couple full seasons, and he won the championship 3 times in years that he didn't run the full season. So, obviously, it was a different world of racing, back then. But I feel like someone like that would be fun to learn about.
Oh yeah, he was a fun guy. Just really good driver. Probably the most underrated driver in NASCAR history. So that'd be a good one for sure. No, I've been thinking a lot about it. It would be cool to get some of those old school guys, like you said, like a Curtis Turner or Junior Johnson or something, just to see how crazy those guys were.
The ones that moonshine, if you get someone who moonshine and then race, I think that'd be really cool.
Junior Johnson might be the answer.
Yeah, I think Junior Johnson's a great one. But I don't want to steal anybody's, but I also think the Allison family, because Bobby's all-time great, and then has after a legendary career, it's just tragedy after tragedy.
That would be similar, like the Von, if it a really good. It's a movie. It's not like a documentary about the Von Erich family. It's very similar. The Iron Claw, which is a great movie. That's kind of a good relation.
I have 2 actually. So flashback, senior year, I had to do a project, and it was like a documentary class, and we had to make a treatment for a documentary we would make one day in our future. And I did 2 because I was going down all these rabbit holes. One of them is Jimmie Johnson. I know that's still pretty more recent, and in 20, 30 years, I think it would be great to just learn about, because he came in and was pretty good from right from the get-go. And then he was so dominant for those years.
Man in the Arena, like the Tom Brady one that came out, the Man in the Arena, it could be very similar to well, that sets up for Jimmy.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned a little earlier, Massie, about his people thought he was super vanilla on the track, but off the track, like I'd love to hear some of those stories about what's going on while he's so dominant on the track. Like what's that life like off the track? Was he living it up? Was he just kind of like, was he pretty focused? And then like the championship drought would be pretty interesting. And then that final run in 2016 is where I would want to like end it right there. But I think that would be really fun. The other like racing documentary that I proposed was about the rise and fall of IndyCar, because it used to be a really popular sport. Like in some of my research, I'm pretty sure it was ahead of NASCAR. And it just the terms of its popularity in the United States, but then they went through their whole split. And I think that would be a fantastic documentary to learn about like the egos and everything that caused it to split. And since it just really hasn't been able to rise back to the level it was. The Indy 500 is still huge, but the rest of the series, like it could be close to, if not on par with Formula One if they had stayed together. So those are my two.
I mean, the Indy 500 used to be part of the Formula One World Championship. Like, think about that kind of history there. I think the France family is actually a really good natural one, and just kind of like, I don't know if there's been a real doc about that off the top of my head. Maybe there has been, but like the France family and the founding of NASCAR, I think, especially like it would have been really good to have one for the 75th and just like telling the story from the France family perspective. I think, I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about like Bruton Smith in kind of his perspective, those like patriarchs of the sport. I think Jeremy Mayfield could be a really good one given his history. You know, some of the best docs are like the rise and fall ones, and then like the redemption arc. So maybe Jeremy Mayfield could be one. I think you could do one about Richard Petty. There's probably been 600 made about Richard Petty though. But I think you do I think the 2001 season actually could be one. Like it's the most important season in the history of the sport. The start of the tragedy.
TV
and
deal.
a blink of the eye is sort of it, but that's Michael Waltrip's perspective.
Yeah.
And like just going through the 2001 season,
9/11.
you have 9/11, like everything that happened in 2001. You know, having that weird New Hampshire race, like, you know, in November, and everything that went with it. I think 2001 would be a very interesting documentary. All right, that will do it for this episode of Happy Hour. Mr. Albino, how can our listeners connect with you and obviously get that sweet fantasy advice as well as some silly season stuff?
Yeah, I see you guys all have your Twitter handles down here. Maybe your X handles. Maybe I should have included mine, but at Dustin Albino, go follow me there. And yeah, fantasy article comes out every Thursday. If you like to play along, it is pretty fun. I would definitely check it out. You know, for the Richmond, you know, we brought up Richmond a couple, 30 minutes ago or whatever. For Richmond for fantasy, I finished 9th in the country, or 9th in the world. Sorry, I had the top 6 finishers. All in
So
order.
would you consider yourself Mr. Worldwide?
No, because that was the only time that I've been in the top 1,000. It's hard. It's definitely hard.
You're better at it than Zach Sterniolo, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I saw his picks. I saw his picks for Darlington. Mine were similar, so I can't talk. It looked good until the end. And then the final stage, it went haywire. So
just go look it up. Go look it up. That's all I'll say.
Zach Sterniolo's Twitter account. Go look it up.
It was bad. I mean, at a moment it looked really good, and then it was really bad.
Yeah.
Massie, Fire on Fridays this week, correct?
Yeah. Yep, this week. Not sure what I'm writing about yet. Maybe something silly season. We'll see how things are going. But yeah, and then next week I'll be Indy 500 in for the first time.
Caleb, are you thinking this week?
Yes, I am. I'll be thinking about the All-Star race.
All right, and I will have nothing else to do this week. Well, I have to edit Brian's podcast, but that's it. Oh, well, my interview with Cam Waters, who just got announced to stage the 60 car for RFK, so that will air, even though he didn't mention it in his interview. But we have a jolly good mate to interview for Bringing the Heat this week. All right, so for Dustin, for Michael, for Caleb, my name's Trey Lyle, signing off for another happy hour. Davey will be back again next week. We'll also have another guest as well, getting you ready to see the Kyle Larson double, plus many more. Who knows? Someone might sign with someone crazy. 300 Chargers might be sold. We never know. This sport is crazy, and you'll have it all here. Thanks, Will, for listening as well. Thanks, Ryan, for listening as well. And if you're listening after the fact, thank you as well. So, bye, everybody.